Welcome to your Vibe Tribe. I'm your host, Eliana. Tune in every Friday to listen to conversations about mental health, relationships, dating, pop culture, and listen in on powerful interviews with powerful women from all walks of life. Hey guys, it's your host, Eliana, and welcome back to another week's episode of your Vibe Tribe. And I have a really special guest here for this week. It's been forever, but we've actually known each other since high school, but I feel like she's a completely different person now. But I have a friend, Lexi, so I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Lexi. I'm coming to you guys live from New York City right now. Well, I guess not live when you're hearing it.
Oh my God, we love.
Um,
I'm dead. I wore a New York sweater and I didn't even
oh
realize it.
yeah,
Subconscious thoughts.
represent.
Okay.
Yeah, so I live in Manhattan. I am a PhD student at Columbia University. I study biochemistry. So being a PhD student is weird. It's kind of like a job. It's kind of like school. It's a little bit in between. But I've been in New York for 9 years. I love it, and the all of the hecticness that comes with it is just kind of part of the deal. So.
Oh my gosh, we love to see a New York girl. I wish I could be her. I just like live vicariously through a sweatshirt. That's it. That's as far as I can go. But oh my gosh, okay. So are you originally from New York?
So originally I'm from Long Island, so
Okay.
out east past the city, about an hour. But I grew up in Central Florida. I went to high school with
Okay.
you, Eliana. So
Yes.
yeah, and then as soon as we graduated, I was back up here. I moved into Manhattan. I
Oh,
went to NYU for undergrad and
okay.
then worked in the field in the city for about 4 years. And then when it came time to apply to grad school, I
Mm.
kind of applied all over the place. I applied in Boston, I applied in Philly, I applied in California, mostly around the San Francisco Bay Area. And it just so happened, I guess it was not my time to leave the city yet because I ended up at Columbia. So.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay. So did you always know you wanted to go into a STEM field? Like did you know, okay, like I want to pursue that path?
It's interesting. I didn't. I came out of high school like gunning for law school. Like I was like, I'm gonna get through
Okay.
undergrad. I'm gonna be an international politics major. I'm gonna go to law school. I'm gonna be some high-powered lawyer. And then I took literally 1 year of economics and international politics classes, and I was like, this is not for me. I changed my major sophomore year, went back to
Okay.
biology, and have been loving it ever since. I
Oh my
actually had
gosh.
thought that I was going to go to med school. And then,
Okay.
as part of trying to kind of get that med school resume going, I started working in a research lab up at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center here in the city. And I
Okay.
loved the research so much, it completely changed my mind.
Wow.
I decided I wanted to go into research, and here I am doing my PhD. So.
Oh my gosh. You girl. I did it 4 years and I was like, peace out. I was like, I'm done. Oh my gosh. That's super
Oh,
exciting. So I was just gonna ask you, I'm like, how much of it was like, was it a shock to go from like living in Central Florida and then to transition into like Columbia University, or was it like an easy transition for you?
it was back when I first moved over to NYU. I mean, I'm the kind of person that doesn't do super well with change anyway.
Yeah.
So, no matter what kind of changes are in my life, I take a lot to adjust. Um, so coming from Central Florida to Manhattan was a big change. Like I had been to the city before. I loved it. I had so much fun, but I was also really, really homesick.
Oh,
Um, I flew back to Florida quite a bit those first 2 years of college before I kind of like settled in and found my niche and found my friends and
mm-hmm.
just kind of worked out my own routine. And I was also working a lot, so I was burnt out a lot. In college, my
Oh my gosh.
situation was very precarious.
Okay.
Um, as you can imagine, NYU is a super expensive school, and I did not
Oh yeah.
have the financial background to cover that. So I'm fronting quite a few student loans currently.
Oh, I'm sure. As many
Yeah.
are. Don't even feel bad about it. You
Yeah,
got to
it
do
was
what you got to
actually
do.
oh, you really do. Um, and it was actually cheaper to move off campus than it was to get on campus housing. That's
That's
how,
insane.
I have a bittersweet relationship with my alma mater for that reason.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so sophomore year, the end of my sophomore year of college, I moved into a micro studio,
Oh my
definitely
God.
illegal in
The New
Chelsea.
York life.
It was like an 8
Wait,
by
what is,
10
wait,
room.
what is, okay, I was like, what does a micro studio even
Okay.
look like?
A micro studio. This is definitely one of the most interesting life stories that I have to offer. So a micro studio it's basically like a boarding house kind of living situation. So you're in a brownstone
Okay.
and you get essentially your hallway apartment door opens up into like an 8 by 10 room in which you have a bed, a wardrobe, a
Oh
table,
my
a mini fridge, a hot plate, and a sink, and that is your entire living space. That's your kitchen, that's your living
Oh
room, that's your
my
bedroom, that's
God.
your whole living space. I ended up getting my bed lofted like all the way up to the ceiling so that I could make more room underneath for like a desk and stuff so that I could study. And the
Oh
bathrooms
my
are shared by the entire floor. There's two separate rooms,
God.
one with a toilet in it and one with a shower in it, and you have to bring
How
your own
many people
toilet
are on
paper.
your floor?
Like 5. Yeah.
What?
Mhm.
No. And
So
I'm assuming there's men and women, like it's just
oh,
mixed.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
anybody.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like you open the
No.
door and you're like, "Oh, there's a shower. Okay." And then, like, there's just, like, a room with a toilet in it, and that's it, and it's, like, this big, so your, like, shoulders are, like, touching the walls. So, yeah,
Oh
that was
my
a fun time. I
gosh.
lived there for 2 years. I paid a ridiculous amount of
What?
money for it because it was
I bet it
I
was in
mean,
a
I'm
good
sure
area.
it was in Chelsea, so that was really nice. But it was
Oh my
also
gosh.
probably illegal.
That's insane. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
what? How old are you in that moment? Because you said those are your first 2 years of college.
So when I moved into that apartment, I was just turning 20. So I think I was 19 when I moved in,
Oh my
and I
God.
lived there until I was 21. So
Okay,
that
so
was a
you're
good
literally like
time.
19. You moved from Florida back from okay, like from Jersey
Oh, yeah.
back to Florida, then back to New York. Okay, how did you well, what did you experience? One, sharing a bathroom with 5 people. Like, did you take it well? Because like, me, I feel like I would like it because I'm meeting people, but then I would also just I don't know if I would just like go back to being a hermit and just to not have to deal with like talking to
Oh,
anybody.
yeah. I mean, like, it was well, you're never in the bathroom at the same time because it's just too small. So,
Okay.
you see people kind of coming in and out, and you chat, and you get to know the neighbors. Like, somebody had lived there for like 20 years, which I cannot imagine doing. It was just like an absurd living situation. There were people who were using the rooms as like a pied a terre for like people, nurses who worked like night shift and just wanted to crash before they went home during the day. Um, a lot of people with interesting stories. The best part about that apartment, though, it did get
Okay.
complicated. The bathroom
The
situation did
positive.
get complicated because I used to
Mhm.
throw a lot of parties.
Oh my
So
gosh.
obviously not in my tiny studio, but we
Right.
had illicit rooftop access, and the building was situated in a place where you had this gorgeous view of the Empire State Building. You can see
Oh
the
my
Hudson River,
gosh.
you can see the One World Trade Center. So I used to throw these like sob parties after our molecular biology exams.
Oh my gosh, I
I
love
used to be
that.
like, "All right, guys, like that was terrible. We all need to get drunk. Let's,
Oh my
everybody come
God.
to my
Let's
roof.
celebrate.
we'll bump some tunes. Yeah, so trying to navigate my shared bathroom when you have a rooftop full of college kids was a little bit more, especially because the rooftop was only accessible by a
Yeah.
ladder. So we're all,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So, I
Thankfully,
mean,
no
you
one
said
ever
you had a
fell.
good group of friends then. So, like, did you find it easy to like find your people like when you started?
Yeah. In college, I had a lovely group of friends in college. They're all kind of like scattered across the country now at this point, doing
No, I'm sure.
lawyer things or doctor things or like whatever they're doing now. Um, but it was a good group. It was nice. I met my best friend at the time, Irene. We were suite mates
Mm,
our sophomore year before I moved into this micro studio. And Irene
okay.
introduced me to this girl, Vanessa, who was also super awesome. And she actually ended up living with me in my micro studio
Oh,
um,
wow.
for like 6 months
In
while
my
she was looking
micro
for a job.
studio. Oh
So,
my
and
gosh, you're
as you can
so
imagine,
nice.
yeah, she slept on a twin size mattress on the floor underneath my loft bed for like 6 months.
Oh my God, savages.
Yeah.
Just like doing what
Yeah.
people do, I guess, in New York to make it,
You
to
have to
survive.
hustle in New York. I mean, I was working throughout the entirety of college. I worked like 3 jobs and I went to school full time. By the time I paid my
Wow,
rent, I had like
that's wild.
$60 left over for food and toiletries and everything for the month. So I used to bike to class because I was too poor to take the
Oh
subway. It
my
was a great
God.
time. Thankfully, though, the one good thing about NYU is that I
Yeah,
did get a job right out of college that paid
that's amazing.
salary. It was in my field. It was a fantastic experience, and I could like actually afford to live a normal human life after that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how did you even manage to work 3 jobs like while you were doing undergrad? Because I'm like, I was also the struggle bus to pay for college.
hmm
And like obviously your major is very demanding. So how did you even manage to do that and still function?
So I was super lucky. I got a job actually in my field working in a research lab while I was in undergrad. I was
Oh, that's
working
awesome. Okay.
yeah, I was working as a cell lineage editor at a developmental biology lab, and they were paying me a pretty competitive rate to do some data analysis and some cell tracking manually using a software that they developed. So that was really nice. I was able to get experience in my field so that I didn't have to like intern and work and go to
Yeah,
school.
that's awesome.
So that was great. And I also nannied through most of college for a few really,
Wow.
really wonderful families. The last family I spent the most time with over my last 2 years of college was just, they were super, super wonderful people. They lived in
Oh,
the coolest building and, they were so down to earth. The kids would go to sleep.
wow.
I would stay late often and just do my homework like while I was there. They were so accommodating. There were some
Wow, that's
cool
awesome.
yeah, there were some cool perks about that job too, because his family lived in the same building as Alec Baldwin. So Alec and I got to be on a first
Dang.
name basis for a little while.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, but their home was beautiful then. You're
Oh my
probably like
God.
in an amazing area.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Oh my gosh.
Really
See that
close to
those are the
school.
perks of New York. Like you never know who you're gonna meet.
Oh yeah. No, I've run into so many cool people in New York.
Oh my gosh, we love that. So okay, now fast forward to your getting your PhD and what did you think was like the hardest challenge that you faced as a woman being in the field that you're in?
So, being in the field that I am as a woman, it's a very the field is very saturated and it stays that way for a long time. So the people who get into it just stay.
Hmm.
We're talking tenured professors who, the
Yeah.
academia world is pretty cutthroat. Once you get a tenure position, usually scientists won't leave. Scientists tend not to like to retire. So you have a lot of these people who have been in the field since like the 60s who are still working. And as we know, there was a lot of controversy surrounding one of the discoverers of the DNA double helix, Watson. He had
Mhm.
worked for Cold Spring Harbor and I believe was stripped of his awards for making racist and misogynistic comments. And unfortunately, that's just the way some people are in the field. And when you're running into a situation where people are tenured and there's not much the university can do to
Yeah.
balance the playing field, it can become a real point of contention. So, people, as a woman in the field, there have been instances where I've not been taken seriously, where, I'll introduce an idea and it's not considered valid until another man speaks up after I've already spoken up and reinstates the same idea, or
Oh
you
my.
know, things get re-explained to me over and over. And I have run into situations even recently where I'm being, taught to do a certain protocol by someone with years less experience in doing such protocol than I have,
Yeah.
but I'm just assumed not to know. Um, so it can be
Wow.
really challenging during graduate school interviews, especially. I've heard some horror stories during graduate school interviews, during postdoctoral interviews, specifically in academia, where, it's just kind of an unspoken thing that they
Yeah.
don't want to hire pregnant women or women who are planning to be pregnant, or women are going to go into certain specialties, either in the medical field or in science, or you're going to want to work on something female anatomy related. And it's just
Yeah.
so ridiculous a lot of the time. I can only imagine how my computer scientist colleagues deal with that
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Because I know some really, really
Awesome. Very male
fantastic,
dominated.
yeah, and I know some really, really fantastic, awesome female scientists in bioinformatics and in systems biology who also experience a lot of the same things, maybe even more so than I have. Um,
Yeah.
but it can be tough. It is getting better.
Okay.
There are routes of representation. There's a lot of organizations on my campus, especially now, that deal with women in science and equality, and the graduate initiative for diversity. That is super awesome, not only
Yeah.
with sort of helping women in science navigate being women in science, but also people of color, um,
Yeah.
and people of a lot of different backgrounds who have all sorts of different experiences, because you get to realize, especially in graduate school, being exposed to so many people from so many walks of life, that there are talented
Oh,
scientists
yeah.
out of all over the place. And you really have
Yeah.
to make sure that you're giving everyone a chance to show what they got.
Right. Exactly. And let them bring something to the table.
Exactly.
So what would you say has helped you the most then in trying to obviously be politically correct and also stand up for yourself in those situations?
The fact that it's becoming more commonplace definitely does help, but personally, I associate myself with people who share the same attitudes, and my attitude on that is that I don't tolerate it. If somebody is going to speak over me, or somebody is going to try and
Hmm.
poach an idea, I call it out when I see it. I've gotten a lot more confident standing up for myself, interacting with um, people in authority, because it has to be brought to someone's attention if it's ever going to change.
Hmm.
If it's going to change, we
Yeah.
can't just sit by and let it happen. You have to be willing and able to say something about it. And a lot
Right.
of the female PIs, a lot of the junior faculty, PI being principal
Mhm.
investigator, they're the heads of our labs. Um,
Okay.
these people are critical in changing the dialogue, because these are the new people coming in, getting the tenure positions, and these are the new people
Right.
who are going to be training our new generation of scientists. So, I've come across a lot of really awesome female PIs who are all about, I've seen entirely women run, women powered labs. And it's
Wow, that's
been
amazing.
super cool. It's like something I never thought I'd see. It's been such a super cool experience.
That's
And
encouraging.
yeah, and my first rotation, even our PI was a man, but he was so welcoming and so inclusive and so just open to diversity um, and to giving everyone an equal opportunity. His lab was just
Yeah.
the four of us girls, and we
Oh,
were
wow.
out there kicking butt. And yeah, so
Oh,
it's nice
wow.
to see more women want to be a part of the field too.
Right.
I think we're experiencing a shortage of people who want to get PhDs and people who want to be scientists.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of the way that our field is funded and the way that our field runs, it's competitive.
Yep. I
It's
didn't know that.
saturated. Oh
I I
yeah.
I researched it because I was looking into like why mental health is such a huge problem in the STEM field, and then I saw that it's almost like a lottery right now, like in order like who gets funding, and so it's
Oh
just so
yeah.
competitive.
Yeah, because labs will shut down if you don't get funded, and it's so you're just constantly writing grants. You're working, I've had days where I've been in lab until 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, I've had days where I've done
I'm
overnights in
freezing.
lab, where I've
There we go.
slept in the lab and just kept
Wow.
going the next day. Um, yeah,
Because you've had a deadline that you have to meet.
Or I've been
That's
running an
wild.
experiment or running an overnight imaging that needs to be supervised. Um, yeah, we are crazy people. Um, and we are
Tell me
willing to
more.
do anything for those results. Yeah, so it's a very demanding field. I mean, it is
Yeah.
rewarding in that you get just that feeling you get when you find something new and you get that
Hmm.
result and you get your imaging back or you get your results back and something is new and cool and different about it. You're literally finding out
Yeah.
things that no one's ever known about existence before, and
Right.
it's so rewarding in that moment. That's why we go through with it. That's why we put in the work. That's why it's just
Yeah.
the excitement of discovery is why we do it. Because
Yeah.
it certainly isn't lucrative and it is a lot
You
of
have to
work.
do it for that.
You have to
Oh
love
my
it.
gosh.
Yeah, you really have to love it. So I'm hoping though that with legislation, like I hope that we can get more funding into these organizations that fund our labs and hopefully can establish a standard of better compensation,
Yeah.
and better benefits and just more I want to say a better lifestyle for our
More
scientists. 'Cause I think,
work-life balance.
yes, exactly. I think that will encourage more people to come into the field. And I think that our generation is bringing some more of that in because there definitely does exist a toxic culture in some spheres where if you're
Wow.
not in lab, what are you doing? Like
Yeah. It's
lab
just
should be
almost
your
like work,
hobby.
work, work, work.
Exactly. And scientists, especially, we really make our work our lifestyle. Our friends are the people that we meet in lab.
Hmm.
Sometimes it gets to the point where you have trouble drawing that boundary between your outside life and the lab.
Yeah.
So I find it really important to be able to do that. And I'm in grad school especially, I'm making sure that I set that boundary early and my mentors
Hmm.
know that I do want to have a life outside of the lab. I
Wow.
will prioritize having a life outside of the lab. I'm going to prioritize my mental health and my well-being. And you'll
And
get
you've
your
set that
results when,
boundary.
oh yeah. Oh
Wow.
yeah. I had a really really lovely exchange actually during my last rotation in grad
Mhm.
school in a lab that I was trying out. I was just, I'm medicated for my depression and my anxiety, and I see a psychiatrist, and
Okay.
I'm very open about it. I was recently diagnosed with bipolar type 2. So I
Okay.
was just having a really hard time adjusting to new medication and just
Yeah.
functioning on a daily basis. So,
It
I
takes
was
some
really,
time too, right? To like get the right dosage.
it really,
Like it's
yeah,
not
it
like an
does.
instant thing, like it's a whole process.
Yeah, it once you get the medication and started, it takes a few weeks for everything to kind of balance out. And if you're already not feeling great before that,
Yeah.
it's a big toll. You feel unmotivated. You get to the point where you're just not functioning, and it's hard to go into lab and to complete your experiments and to really bring your all. And at that point,
Yeah.
I had felt like I wasn't capable of bringing my 100% to lab, and I didn't want to do any work that was subpar. So I mustered up the courage to go chat with my PI about it.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. Wait, what were you feeling when you were needing to talk about that? Because I feel like so many emotions would be going through my mind and like
oh,
judgment
yeah.
of myself, like just so many things.
Oh, I felt so guilty. I felt so guilty, because you want to get your results in and your work is important. At the time, I was working on bladder cancer epigenetics. And so the work is important and you want to get it done and you want to share it with the world. But at some point, you're not capable of doing your best work and analyzing your results to the best of your ability if you're not functioning as a person.
Right.
So I was so nervous to talk to my PI. I was worried that he'd want me to stay in lab and do the experiments. I'd worried that, he wouldn't understand or that I'd be judged for it. And I actually was very pleasantly surprised. We sat down. I just basically laid it all out on the table for him and was like, look,
Yeah.
like, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish these experiments. I am not doing well. I need to take some time. And he was like, understood. You put you first.
Wow.
He was like, your mental health is the most important thing. I want to help you be the best scientist you can be. And if that means that we take a
Wow.
pause on the experiment or end the rotation early so that you can focus on getting yourself better so that you can bounce back for your second rotation or bounce back for your classes and be the best that you can be
Wow.
then so be it. That's what we'll do. And he, really surprised me because
Hmm.
that has not been the response that I've seen in the past, and that hasn't
Yeah.
been there hasn't generally been an understanding in the field of taking care of yourself, taking time away from lab to make sure that you're okay. Usually
Yeah.
you're just sacrificing yourself for the sake of your experiments. But I
Yeah.
think that that was kind of a big turning point for me where I was like,
Wow.
like having to sacrifice ourselves for these experiments doesn't have to be acceptable. We can take care of us. We can have a life outside of lab. We have to make sure
Hmm.
that as scientists, we are healthy because
Yeah, we're setting our own boundaries.
exactly, because even that'll benefit our work as well. We do better
Exactly. Yeah.
experiments, things are better controlled, less systematic error, better data analysis, and less pressure leads to less scientific integrity violations. I think it is just all around a good thing to promote
Yeah.
this whole work-life balance in science. It can be a lot of pressure, but I think we need to change the dialogue and we need to
Hmm.
get people taking care of themselves.
Well, even talking about mental health, I think until recently, there's always been like a stigma about even talking about, like maybe home issues or any challenges that anyone's facing, like, specifically mental health. I think it's been taboo for a long time. And I think just now in the last couple of years, it's now more of an open conversation. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I have I operate now on a principle of radical honesty where I'm very open about it in hopes that
Yeah.
other people who are going through the same thing can also open up about it, and you can find your kind of crew, your little support group,
Yeah.
where you can relate to other people who are going through similar things to you, because I guarantee, like, I wasn't the only person alone in this situation. I made friends in
Yeah.
grad school that I was able to open up to, and they're going through very similar stuff. Um,
Wow.
you know, and even if they weren't going through similar stuff, I made a group of really supportive friends who would cover for me if I had to miss class, or would send me notes, or would work with me on
Oh, wow.
assignments, and would just
Yeah.
encourage me, to invite me to things, force me to get out of bed, force me to do stuff. And that
Wow, that's
ultimately is
awesome.
what's, yeah, that ultimately, it really, really helps. It kind of is what holds you up when you feel like you can't hold yourself up.
Yeah.
And that was really, really important.
Well, I think a lot of times, like, I always say we always think our problems are like we're the only ones experiencing that problem. So I think we
Hmm.
automatically we're like, I can't open up, someone's going to judge me, or they're not going to understand, when that person that you're worried about judging you might actually be going through the exact same thing and you just don't
Oh,
know it.
yeah. Yeah. I always am a proponent of just opening up to the people you care about, talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's, a lot of the time, that's how you can find, you can connect with resources and find the help that you need to get.
Mm,
So it's been,
love
it's been
that.
quite a
Yeah.
wild ride.
So I wanted to circle back to when you were diagnosed. Did you always know that you had certain mental health issues, or did it progress when you were in that kind of stressful environment of college or undergrad and then getting your PhD?
Yeah, I had kind of a tumultuous time growing up. So I think it all started really, really early. Um, I've been dealing with obsessive compulsive disorder since I was about 13. So that's kind of been on the table, and I've been
Yeah.
medicated for depression for a really, really long time. But the anxiety, I think, set in more in grad school. The imposter
Mm.
syndrome just starts pretty much immediately, and you
Oh
start to
gosh.
worry. And so, I was very I had periods of doing really well, and then I had periods of doing really poorly, and I just didn't understand why I wasn't mellowed consistently. Um,
Yeah.
but my insurance, at the time that I was working, did not cover psychiatry well enough to be able to seek treatment and to be able to get um,
Wow.
further clarification on what I was going through. So when I started at
Yeah.
Columbia, they gave me really fantastic insurance. I started with a Columbia based doctor, a psychiatrist.
Oh wow.
Um,
That was through
and
the student program there?
so I was referred through the student program, but she is private
Okay.
practice. And so she, did a really, really thorough intake on me and kind of figured out what was going on. So, in addition to the medication that I had been taking, I needed to supplement with something else that was going to stabilize everything and make the first medication work better. And we're still kind of like
Yeah.
experimenting with stuff, seeing how things go. But
Yeah.
it takes, I can't stress the importance of, if you think you're experiencing some sort of mental illness, like, don't feel bad about it. Don't,
Mm.
stigmatize yourself. Like, seek treatment. I cannot stress enough the importance of
Yeah.
seeing a qualified psychiatrist with a medical degree, who I recommend medication management and um, talk
Yeah.
therapy done by the same person. It's been so helpful for me. Um, and it's been super, super helpful navigating it with grad school as well, because my psychiatrist has become, we schedule around grad school, and she's become
Yeah.
someone who is very reliable in my life, and is definitely a big pillar of support for this whole situation that I had been going through. So,
Yeah. I think
yeah.
a lot of times like I hear like, oh, like I'm just going through a rough patch, like I can handle it myself. I can handle it myself. And then it's like how do you know when you need to seek someone else's help?
And it's interfering enough with your daily life that you feel like you can't get things done, where you feel like you're having trouble at work or at school, or um, having trouble interacting with your friends or interacting with other people, or you become withdrawn. I think that's a good time to really seriously seek the help of a qualified psychiatrist. I think so. And that was
Oh,
I've continuously
okay.
gone through kind of periods of this where I'll have months where I'm great and I feel like I don't need to be seeing anybody, and then I will kind of
Yeah.
descend back into these like cycles of, being in a depressive episode and
Hmm.
being able to come out of it. So I think in a situation like that, I think that having consistent treatment, even when you're feeling good, is very, very helpful because it helps you manage when you're not feeling
Yeah.
good as well.
How did you also, I guess, kind of help cope with those feelings of like blame, like not blaming yourself for the way that you are and the way that you're born? You know what I mean? And kind of help with those feelings of guilt, maybe that someone might
Yeah,
be
I mean,
feeling.
there is no magic solution, unfortunately. My psychiatrist likes to say, you force yourself. How else do you do things that you don't want to do? You force yourself to do them.
Hmm.
Affirmations help. Um, just taking care of yourself and taking it easy. I like to, reiterate, like, I forgive myself for things. I like to, yeah,
Yeah, I
forgiving
love that one.
yourself is really, really important because I get a lot of anxiety issues. And when I'm in like this hyped up, anxious state, tend to, um, I tend to my brain tends to overdo it with, worst case scenario. And I can easily, ruin my entire day
Hmm.
working myself up into an anxious tizzy. But you have to try to avoid getting angry at yourself for when you slip up. You have to just, forgive yourself and move forward. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of practice, but ultimately, that's how you make the most progress.
Yeah, affirmations for me have been very, very, very powerful. I feel like just even, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but even just reading it, it's like it just reinforces
Mhm.
that, and you're like, okay. Or if you like start your day with that affirmation, I feel like then when certain circumstances come up during your day, then you're more likely to pause and be like, wait, but I just said I was gonna not blame myself, or I said I was
Mhm.
gonna do this. So I feel like you naturally are more inclined to, okay, let me try to like quiet those thoughts and quiet those comments that I'm telling myself all the
Mhm.
time. And it makes it
It
a little
is. It
easier.
really does. And like if you have to tell yourself in that moment, like, I hear you, like I hear myself. Um, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
I forgive you and I love you. Like you have to reinforce those 4 points in your own brain
Yeah.
all the time. And I actually learned that one from another assistant horse trainer at a farm where I was teaching at, who used to do a lot of meditation, and she was just the most zen person I've ever met. And she just was super
Oh my
happy all the
gosh.
time, and she, really
You're like, tell me the
exactly. I
secret.
was like, hello, you want to teach me your ways? And she used to post a lot of Instagram stories about this, and it really resonated with me. She, she just meditation, she was really a positive influence in showing me that like meditation, spending time with yourself, taking time for yourself, physical exercise, just getting out and doing something really helps. And I know I don't always get to practice what I preach. Sometimes I still get stuck in my ways. I'm
Yeah.
very much a work in progress. I definitely don't have entirely mad.
We love that. We should
Oh
always be a
yeah,
work in progress.
I am
Always.
spreading the information that has been told to me, but as far as applying it, I am still very much still working on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's
Oh my
important.
God. So wait, you mentioned
Yeah.
horses too. Is that like something you use to kind of like escape from your from
Oh
the
yeah.
science and from all of
Absolutely.
that? Wait, talk about your horses. I'm like, how many do you have? What do you do with them?
Absolutely.
I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh, I don't know where I would be without my horse. Riding is the one thing
mm,
that just gets me out of my head. You really have to focus on what you're doing, especially in the discipline. I ride dressage. So everything's very intricate and there's a lot of very, very precise cues you have to give the horse. So you really have to be focused in and paying attention, and it has been so good in just getting me out of my
okay.
head, getting me to kind of this space where I don't have to be thinking about anything and I'm just focused on Sully. Um, so
Yeah. Oh, Sully, I love that name. That's so
named after the
cute.
pilot that landed the plane on the Hudson. So, yeah, he
Oh,
came to me with
wow.
that name, and it's actually very funny because he's like so not graceful at all. You would think he was like this noble. He
He's
is.
a work
We
in
are very
progress too.
similar. Him and his medical issues, I cannot even begin to explain the ringer that this poor horse has been through.
Oh no.
We just came back after a year and a half hiatus from riding. He was just on
Oh
vacation
wow.
in rehab for some injuries and some medical problems that he was having. I had gotten to the point where I was afraid I would
Oh,
never be able to ride him again, but thanks to some other
oh
awesome
no.
ladies, my vet, Dr. Melissa Kelson, and my farrier, Annie, um, which
Oh.
shout out to Annie for being a woman farrier because, like, no, like,
Wait,
she
what's a
shoes
farrier?
horses. So she's like out there
Oh
like
wow.
pounding
Okay,
that
okay.
anvil and like heating up horseshoes in like a steel forge.
Wow.
And that is a field that you see women
Great.
in even less than science, even less than math. I've met
Yeah.
maybe two female farriers in my whole life. And I've been riding horses for 20 years. Um, but
Wow.
she really did a number, and she brought Sully back for me, and we've been riding for about 8 weeks now. We're trying
Oh,
to get geared up for competition season in summer. Um, and yeah, things have
wow.
been good on that front. So that's been really nice.
I love that. We all need that. Like, I mean, I know, and you even mentioned, I mean, what you do, you have to be so, so invested, so passionate about it, and you have to love it for what you do,
Hmm.
like for what it is. But even so, it's like we have to have something else that brings us out of what gives us income, or like something that just brings us like joy that's not, that just
Hmm.
takes it away. Because if not, I feel like you're like the lifespan that you're going to be doing it, at one point you're going to be like, I'm
Oh
so
yeah,
done with all of this, and you're
you
going to
need
reach a
your
boiling point.
thing. You need your thing. Horses are my
Hmm.
thing. And I do prioritize. I've caught a lot of flack for prioritizing my horse so much in the science world, but you know what? I need it. Like, that's what I need to stay
Oh
me, to
my
kind of help
gosh.
maintain that balance. If I need to get in lab at 7 a.m. one day so
Yeah.
that I could leave at 3 and drive out to the barn, that's what I'm going to do. You have to make yourself a priority. You have to
Wow.
make the things that make you happy a priority, because you can't just waste your whole
Yeah.
life away working and working and working and
Hmm.
not stop and enjoy what makes you happy. So, mhm.
Exactly. Oh, we love that.
Dating in New York is pretty crazy. I mean, I like there I've met an array of colorful people, just like some total weirdos, some like perfectly nice people, But in New York, it is a mixed bag. Like it really is. It is the melting pot city, and that is definitely reflected in the whole dating situation.
I'm so happy. I feel like you've come so far, and it's awesome to see you doing amazing, badass things. Like, oh gosh, I could not
It's
do any of what you're doing. So, but we need more of you in the world.
Well, we need, we got to get it out there. We got to get some of these people coming out to join the science world. It really is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can entice more people to come to the dark side.
I was gonna ask you, so like before we wrap it up, I mean, yeah, like what words of encouragement can you give like any young girl or anyone who's maybe who's younger, who's thinking about going to college, or who maybe he's an undergrad and is thinking about going further and pursuing their
hmm Yeah,
PhD?
I mean, things are always tough in the moment, but you find a way to work it out. And I've kind of lived by that mantra since I was an undergrad living on $60 a month, doing essentially the impossible. You find a way to work it out.
Yeah.
And no one can tell you that you can't do something. I mean, if someone does tell you that you can't, you just go and do it. And that's the best way. That is the
I love
best
that.
way to respond to anyone trying to put you down. So yeah, I mean, just talk to your fellow gals. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid to speak up if you see something
Yeah.
that you don't like going on. And just be your best self. Because doing that and doing what you love, trying to change that dialogue, like that is what's going to do it. So just do
Yeah.
you.
I love that. I could not have said it better. Amazing. Oh, well, Lexi, thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on. This was amazing. And I'm sure you are going to inspire any person that listens to
I
this
hope
episode. So
so.
super
It was
exciting.
great chatting with you, Eliana.
Awesome. Okay. Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.